On the 23rd of May 2025, in the year of our Lord Telos, the Lore by Night Discord server reached 1,000 members, which isn't too bad really, given the fact that Lore by Night is essentially a one-man band run by this chucklefuck here, and that's just amazing shit really for anyone really, and I'm exceptionally grateful for all the love and support that you lot have shown me these last few years on the Lore by Night Discord server. So if you haven't joined, you should go and join already. I mean, I don't think we needed that bit of advice, but of course I'm a content creator and I have to prostitute my wares. Now, if you've been a member of the Lore by Night Discord server for the last 2, 3, possibly 4 years, you will know that I have wanted 1,000 members for some time. It's like the only milestone I've really had with it, because I've wanted to run a special Vampire the Masquerade game to celebrate 1,000 members. Now initially it was going to be a one-shot, but since then I actually want to do a small chronicle, because we've got to make it a bit more special than just a one-shot. Not that there's anything wrong with those, of course. And I thought I would run the best version of Vampire the Masquerade for it. So future me, show the dear audience what I consider to be the best version of Vampire the Masquerade. Sorry, you must have misheard me. I said the best version of Vampire the Masquerade. Ugh! Oh, fucking hell! Oh, that's disgusting. Holly, come here. It's okay. Holly comes rushing over to my knee, seeing that I am distressed. Oh, it's okay, Holly. No, don't look at it, Holly. It's too much. It's just fucking cringe. No, I said the best version of Vampire the Masquerade. Yeah, that's it, all right. Pure perfection. Yes, I am of course talking about Vampire the Masquerade First Edition, because you may recall earlier this year I did a little fun unboxing, unwrapping video because I managed to find a really good nick copy on eBay of all places. Here it is right here, and if you want to see my first reaction of opening this book, a video is going to appear on the card like up there now, where you can go and watch just an autistic lad just delve into what I consider to be the holy fucking grail of Vampire the Masquerade. So I'm going to be putting together a short Vampire the Masquerade First Edition Chronicle using only Vampire the Masquerade First Edition materials, and I'll actually show you what I'm going to be using right now, and if this changes I'll let you know. We've got this pile of books here. At the top we've got First Edition, we have got the Storyteller's Companion, is that it? Yeah, the Storyteller's Handbook, the Player's Handbook or Guide for First Edition. This one here is another original print, that one is print on demand, and so is this one, the Chicago Chronicles, but of course we're going to be using this, the Chicago by Night First Edition, and the Succubus Club, because you can't have a Vampire the Masquerade First Edition game without the Succubus Club and Chicago. They kind of go hand in hand, in fact. I'm really looking forward to this. Like, I've made a couple posts on social media about this, but putting together this small chronicle has actually got me really excited to run Vampire again, because it's been like well over a year. Well, it's been nearly a year, actually, since I last ran Vampire. Another video is going to appear on a card up there where I did something that was Bloodlines related. Only with that one, we were using the revised edition rule set. Well, and a bit of second edition as well. And 20th anniversary edition, so a whole mishmash of genres here. Or editions, I should say. But with this, we are just going to be using first edition material. So, what exactly is this chronicle going to entail? Well, in my page of notes here, just to remind myself what things are going to be. It's been a while since I've actually had to make notes, but I'll explain a bit more why I have these notes in place. But I'll just read the background paragraphs to what I've presented here in this game, Last Rites in the Rain. And that's rights as in R-I-T-E-S, rather than what I've actually spelled as in the opposite of left. Annabelle Treabelle, Toreador Primogen, assembles the players to her house, the Stanley Greer House, north side of Chicago, fairly near to downtown, quite possibly the nicest home in all of Chicago. They want to escort a singer, Grace Gold, living in the south side. Annabelle is putting together one of her parties and wants to see what she and her band are all about. The players are to escort Gigi to her home and be awarded appropriately. Now, it's a very simple premise setup sort of thing. Like, the players are assembled to go and meet the prince or Primogen sort of thing. And I think after Helena, Annabelle is probably the most iconic character in Chicago by Night. You may disagree with that, but that's just what my opinion is. And I think it provides a little twist on it, because it's not a because it's not the prince, it's a primogen. And Annabelle is a particularly influential figure within Chicago, but you can read all about her in the various Chicago by Night books at your own leisure. But there's a twist to this that I feel players are going to be not expecting, because... Actually, I'll just carry on reading. Nova Mori, Nosferatu Anarch, has been working with a werewolf called He Dreams in Red since the Nosferatu accidentally saved his life. Red has mostly done little favours for Mori, but it was Mori's turn to help out the guru. Grace is Red's sister, and is aware of the attention she has been getting from vampires, not knowing the full potential scale of things, and has asked Mori and his gang to collect her and keep her for a few days to prepare for her to move out of the city. Grace, not knowing about the arrangement, because she would resist and she's finally making a name for herself in the big city, suspected she has been followed and attacked when they come knocking on her door. Cue scuffle and her falling to her death. Yes, the players are going to turn up to her house and they're going to probably suspect that she's going to be arrived dead, or she's not there, or they're going to find her and there's going to be trouble all over the place. But no, the players are going to arrive, presumably in a car, and splat! She hits the ground, so it's literally dead on arrival. And there's not going to be anything the player's going to do about that. And they see the body, and there's going to be a massive cry that says, "Oh shit!" They look up, and they see the vampires involved. And then ensues the rest of the game, where it's going to be a little hunt, finding the 5 members, and also replacing the singer, or dealing with that. Because I'm imagining they're going to try and replace the singer, or involve Annabelle somehow, saying, "Hey, Yasina's dead," and she's going to be pretty pissed, and now they're going to have to find a replacement, which will also carry over into an audition segment of the game. And if one of the players are a musician, I'm going to employ my very critical producer brain and just put them through the fucking arena. But just going back a little bit to the crime scene itself, I'm going to have one of the NPCs, a member of this Anarch gang, who, by the way, none of them know what's going on. They've just going to collect somebody who's an important person to the Nosferatu Nova Mori. And this particular NPC, who's going to be masquerading as a caitiff, but is actually a Salubri. Yes, the Salubri were very much a thing in first edition Vampire the Masquerade. In fact, they're in the player's guide. But I'll get on to the available clans for people to choose in a moment. And players can find out if they're a Salubri if they do certain things. Which will be like the little leverage that they'll have on the Salubri / caitiff to cough up information. So, just to go through my list of the gang, and they've all got like fairly 90s sounding gang names, except for one. But you have Nova Mori, the Nosferatu gang lead, as I said. He's good with PCs. As in computers rather than the PCs, the player characters. So stereotypical Nosferatu territory here. He's the leader of the gang, keeping it low to the kinfolk. GG arrives. And he is Scorch's brother in blood and relation, so there's going to be another Nosferatu in the game. Scorch is a Nosferatu. Scorch is Generation 11, and so is Nova Mori. Scorch is a demolition and weapons expert. Nova's sister in blood and relation, as a reminder to myself. Corpse Bunny is a Gangrel Generation 12, loves animals and hates people, and flits between rescue homes and zoos. And I'll talk about the different parts of this adventure in a moment. Then you have Acrid Lithium, who is a Generation 13 Toreador who loves goth but is really just a wannabe tourist. So they're not a goth per se, they just love the fashion, that is just, and the music and the scene, which is a bit different to actually appreciating the genre, if that makes sense. Like, I forget the character's name, but there is a Toreador in Coteries and Shadows of New York who's obsessed with religion, but it's more like a Toreador fad sort of thing, of like the obsessive nature rather than actually being a devout Christian themselves. And as a result, Acrid Lithium is addicted to the Succubus Club. So that's how I'm introducing that one here. Unless, of course, a player wants to have a character that's connected to that, and that's just going to be another thing that just gets that through the door. Then you have Q-Bone, which is literally spelled Q-B-O-W, and this is the character I came up with first, who is the Salubri Generation 13, pretending to be the caitiff, cares for ghouls and mortals, because of course they would be, because they are first edition Salubri. And I've put in bold, knows Phil is the oldest. And Phil is a Generation 9 Malkavian, who is visibly the youngest, but is actually the oldest. New to the game, was meant to help with dominating the human, and is child of Paula Smith, who is one of the Malkavians present in Chicago by Night First Edition, who's very much tied with the Camarilla. And the reason why I've put that thing in bold, flip on the other side, is that the whole adventure, as I said, is going to be the players darting to and from Chicago, finding these vampires, and there's going to be no set order that they're going to do them, and they can do whichever one they fucking want to, except for Cubone, who's going to be the one in the murder scene, as it were, the apartment or the apartment building, who is intentionally going to fuck up, like they trip or they get caught, but they're not going to have the means to escape, and the players are going to interrogate them for the information. And each of the characters is going to know one additional feature about the different members of the gang. For example, Cubone knows the bare basics that I've just presented to you, but they know that Phil is the oldest vampire, but doesn't know much more than that. Scorch is going to be hiding in the Warrens of Chicago, the whole Nosferatu sewer thing, of course, and Scorch is going to be taking out the players with gunshots and grenades, which is again something that's mentioned in the player's guide. I think it's funny, actually, that grenades are present in the player's guide, but not the Storyteller's Handbook, probably because having grenades is something that a player would probably want to get their hands on more than the ST, because the ST can use a lot more powerful things to take care of the enemies. But you know, I just think that's just kind of funny little detail. And Scorch and Nova share a haven, but Nova, of course, is not there because he's the gang leader and he's just fucked off until the time is right. That she will know that her brother Nova Mori is going to meet with the rest of the gang at Lincoln Park basketball court, and knows that Nova is working with someone, but she doesn't know who. Corpse Bunny is, as I said, is going to be in one of two locations, and is either going to be the anti-cruelty animal hospice or the Brookfield Zoo, and I think I have to make a note of that Cubone knows it's going to be one of those two. Actually, it's going to be a different NPC that knows that, I think. Anyway, I'll get onto that when I get onto that. She's not at the animal rescue thing, but when they go there, they'll find that there's some troublesome people trying to steal a dog, which is going to equal to the number of players -2. So if there's 5, there's going to be 3 of these thugs. There's going to be a bit of combat. There's going to be combat all over the place with this. Like when they meet the players, depending on which of the gang members they see, because I've assigned them to a D8, rolling on the D8, and say if it's Scorch, their Scorch is going to be taking pop shots at them. Other vampires will be using their different powers, etc. and so forth. They're all going to be reacting differently, so it's all going to be a bit chaotic, random table stuff, much like in the nature of first edition, and a lot of the random events that can happen in Chicago by Night, which I'm going to be rolling on a little bit here and there, just to stretch out the campaign a little bit, to make the game feel a bit more breathable and believable, rather than just like moving from one checkpoint to the next. So they're not going to be in the animal rescue thing. There's going to be some people trying to steal a dog there. Corpse Bunny is actually going to be a Brookfield Zoo. It's a large fuck-off zoo with plentiful enclosures, and that's found with a bit of research, and I'm pointing there because I have a computer there. There are going to be some Gould chimpanzees on the loose, which equals to the numbers of players -1. So there are 5 players. There's 4 chimpanzees, and they're going to ambush the players, and again, stats of that are found in the player's guide. Bunny will not share anything about the gang unless through Dominate or someone invests in both the rescue centre and zoo, so basically if they protect it or they give money, etc. and so forth. And Scorch is exceptionally jealous of a model called Crystal, so the players could use that if they go to Corpse Bunny first to get Scorch to open up a bit more, like, and I need to work out what the details are going to be that, but it's kind of Bloodline inspired, if you know the quest I'm referring to there. Acrid Lithium, as I said, is obsessed with the Succubus Club and the goth rock culture, and has little regard for the Masquerade, which has attracted the attention of the hunters, and I've put in brackets 3, that's the number of hunters up there. That's going to be like the main event there, because she's going to be dancing during her own thing, and the players are going to be looking around, and if they do well with particular investigation roles, they've noticed that they're going to be people who are watching this wannabe goth girl, which is going to cause some issues, because that's a Masquerade breach waiting to happen if they deal with the vampire hunters head on. So again, it's going to be encouraging the players to come up with different ways of handling the situation. Acrid Lithium will know that Bunny's grandma June works at the reception of the anti-cruelty and will fold easily if June is brought into discussion. So if they go to her first, then they can use that to break down Corpse Bunny. Then there's Phil, who is quietly reading in a library at the University of Chicago, and will run if they feel threatened. And he's unsure what he wants. He wants to be free of the Camarilla, because if you read up on Paula Smith's backstory, she's a particularly nasty Malkavian. Actually, most of them actually are fucking nasty. But the Anarchs are too loud and chaotic, so... But one of the things I want to do with Phil is, like, make him autistic. Like, I am autistic, and all the characters I make, or even the ones that are written down, are going to be autistic to some degree or another. But Phil, I'm intentionally making autistic. No, I'm not saying that the Malkavian derangements have made him autistic, but it's just emphasised those elements of him far more, as I feel the curse would do in that scenario, potentially. Nova is irrationally scared of dogs. Brackets, it's not true, it's just the fact that Nova is scared of werewolves. So Phil actually knows 2 things. One, for Nova and one for somebody else. And he knows that lithium has been banned or barred from the Succubus Club, and it may get her killed if the owner catches her again. So that's another way of handling with lithium. Either they go and contact somebody directly, or they use that to threaten her. To start talking about what she knows. And the thing with Phil is that there are different ways that they could handle him as well. Like, again, he's an anarch in a university and a library, which, again, using combat here might not be advised, but players might do particular roles and realise that actually a lot of Camarilla vampires use the University of Chicago as like their haven and base of operations. Like a couple of the Tremere do, I believe. Oh, it's Critias's main domain. And the library, well, the University of Chicago is pretty fucking huge in itself, so the different ways they can handle Phil. Maybe they could try and like coerce him back into the Camarilla, or maybe not. Again, that's just going to be down to the players to decide how they do with that. And of course, the final encounter, which will probably be part of a session or a session of itself, is dealing with Nova after a few days have passed, where the players confront Nova on the basketball court. And something I haven't mentioned is that the gang aren't really going to be talking to each other, like they're just sort of hanging low until a few days has passed as per the instructions. They're going to meet up. Nova's going to find that the gang's not there, but it's going to be the coterie, and he's shitting himself because they're there and the gang's not there. He finds out that Gigi is dead. Werewolf turns up. Chaos ensures, because werewolves, as statted out in first edition, are fucking broken. So I really want to invoke the horror that brings, and also just make them aware that, you know, you can't converse your way out of this. You can't really fight this. You might just have to fucking run away. And depending on what they do, I might throw in an extra werewolf here and there, like it's a whole pack scenario, but that might just be a bit overkill. But we'll see what happens. If any players like mention offhand, like, oh, we can take on anything like werewolves or whatever, like, depending on how they interact, I may up or lower the difficulty a little bit, but we'll have to see what happens there. And of course, there'll be part of the session where they're at the party and, you know, looking for the musician or being the musicians themselves for the band replacement. And then, of course, I'll do my usual, what happens next? What do you go and work to? What happens to the character after this chronicle? Which I think is a really nice way to wrap up a particularly chaotic chronicle, potentially. So yeah, I'm really excited just to get this chronicle off the ground. I'm going to be posting it on the Discord server fairly soon, as of recording this, the 8th of July 2025, in the year of our Lord Talos. And I am the one who managed to get Vampire the Masquerade First Edition on Start Playing Games. Whatever it's fucking called. You're welcome. It may sound like a huge thing, but it really wasn't. It was just giving them a little email saying, hey, all the other editions of Vampire the Masquerade are on here. Why isn't First Edition? So yeah, if you want to play Vampire the Masquerade First Edition for free or make a bit of money from it, you can now do that through Start Playing Games. Awesome stuff. And of course I'm going to be doing my usual handouts, like how to make a character, but then again it's exactly the same as V20, so I might just copy and paste that and just tweak a little things here and there. There are some differences, oddly enough. Archetypes are considered optional, so like nations with demeanors, they were considered optional in first edition. Merits and flaws are not within the core book, but they're present in the player's guide. Players are only going to be able to play the clans presented in the core book, so if I have somebody coming up to me wanting to be playing as a Meatsy, that's not going to be an option, because first of all, they're part of the Camarilla. Second of all, that's a second edition feature, although I am going to be bringing that in another first edition chronicle that I'm going to be running fairly soon, but you're just going to have to keep your eyes peeled for that. They're all going to be generation 13 or 12, you know, like a standard fledgling. They need to break free from their size grasp. They do this thing for Annabelle, and then Annabelle will pull the relevant strings to make sure that the players have some freedom, providing of course that they're able to complete the task correctly and it doesn't piss her off. So that's all going to be really fun stuff. And of course I've got her stats in Chicago by Night First Edition. I've got the layout of the Succubus Club in the Succubus Club, both of which are in the Chicago Chronicles Volume 1. I've got all the rules that I need for First Edition, and all the other bits and pieces that players will need extra for that, and some of the encounters are in the Player's Guide and the Storyteller's Companion, which I'm really stoked for. And the rest of this video is basically just going to be breaking down the different sessions and telling you lot what happened, what the different character concepts are, and all the rest of it, I guess. So I have literally just logged off from Discord of running that very first session, and the lighting's a bit odd because I've got a little light up there. I was experimenting with something new. It's nearly 11 o'clock at night, so hopefully this doesn't look too crappy for you lot, but it was a lot of fun. I got into the end of where I wanted to with the first session, where the coterie, which we have two Tremere, Bruja, a Gangrel, and a Malkavian. which is a very interesting mix. Some wonderful character concepts and a lot of fantastic role-playing as well. They all met in front of the house, they had a bit of a chit-chat. They found Annabelle Triabel very off-putting and snobby because a lot of them were very low-class characters, which I absolutely love and can relate to a lot more. They're given the task, they didn't trust her that something was going to go wrong, that she knew something, and they presumed that she knew that the attack was going to happen, that anarchs were after her, but no, that's just like Toreador being fucking paranoid. And the fight happened, and our Gangrel launched into battle straight away, taking on my Nosferatu Scorch, who, through a bit of combat, I wanted them to get away because I only wanted Cubone, our Salubi, to be the one that interrogated, and he actually did botch on a roll. I didn't have to make that up, which was quite nice. So to force the situation to back off, like she pulled out a grenade because I knew that she was going to have a lot of weapons on her. Now, I think most people would have seen it as an invitation for them to fuck off because that could have gone really badly. But not the combat-heavy Gangrel, who tried to disarm them, and they managed to do so with a really good roll. But in the attempt to dodge, Scorch botched, and the grenade essentially went off in their hand. So that's 12d10 damage, that was inflicted between the two of them, and I rolled it, and they ended up taking 7 and 5. It was our Gangrel who was momentarily incapacitated, and Cubone was able to redeem himself a little bit, performing a bit of Obia to recover our incapacitated Gangrel, which was rather nice, and the players kind of worked out what was going on, and I revealed it at the end of the session, and it caused a lot of joy. Oh shit, it was a Salubri, it wasn't just a Tremere doing like some weird thaumaturgy shit. Which was a lot of fun to reveal that, and I only did that because I know that Cubone isn't going to come back at all in the Chronicle, and they let him go and, find a better life sort of thing, which was a lot of fun. If you know how I run my games, I did the standard free XP to everybody involved, and our Tremere player, who was called Jess, got the additional experience point because their characters really worried about being killed off by Annabelle because they arrived and the body fell and cracked their head open, which caused the amount of drama that I wanted. But their character was the most frightened that they were all going to die, and they were freshly embraced. And their character had a full-on crash. You know what we've just done? We're going to get killed, blah, 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 blah. And it was a bit of role-playing. And in that accent, I just threw that back, with this over-the-top Italian accent, because it sounded a bit like, Mamma Mia, Italiano sort of thing. And all of that just made everybody laugh. And the character had this really great role-playing moment. And the player who chose that character, it was their first time playing Vampire, from my understanding. And it was a really great role-playing moment. And we all were really proud and encouraging and excited for them, and that's what I love about running games, that I can provide moments like this for people, not just for a huge Discord community, but more private things. And it's an honor really to give those experiences to people and just to allow them to express themselves and have a lot of fun with these characters. And it fooled us all just how well they're doing the character. They thought they weren't doing all that well because they weren't talking all that much, which I noticed, and I had asked them for a couple things here and there, and I feel I'm going to do a bit more as the Chronicle unfolds. But hopefully as they get more confident with things, I won't have to check up on them as much. But if I do, that's absolutely fine. It's not a problem, because there's always at least one particularly shy or nervous person in a game that doesn't volunteer as much. I am that person in most settings. But yeah, it was really good, and everybody unanimously voted them straight away, because I usually go around in a circle, but they all just volunteered that bit of information, which it was a really wholesome moment. And of course, doing it live to the Discord server, I had a little side chat going on, and seeing people interacting to what I did and all reacting to like the shocking moments, and of course they don't know what's going to come. They know that the Nosferatu Scorch is going to be coming into this guns blazing. They don't know all the other bits of plot that I'm going to be throwing at them as well, like the zoo with the fights of the chimpanzees. They are not going to be aware of the hunters at the Succubus Club. They're probably going to have a nice conversation with Phil. But there's a huge mix of combat and social here, and it's nice that they're able to divide that within their own roles. Like, yeah, you got the Gangrel who's like very combat heavy, but he also did a fair amount of social stuff as well. Like, it's really cool. And I'm having a lot of fun with this, and I'm very glad that my players are having a lot of fun with it as well. And I've provided them, okay, you're going to go and do all of this, and the character they're going to chase after first is Scorch, and I decided I was going to use my little odds and evens technique to see whether they survived the explosion or not. And I brought out my little friend, Nemesis, which you might have seen me post about on social media. It's a like 3D printed skull with like a hole in it, so I can roll dice through it, like a little dice tower skull thing that I'm going to be using a lot more when I do my solo zombie stuff, using a variety of different zombie TTRPGs as part of Mission Zombotch. A video is going to appear on a card somewhere. I talk a bit about that with regards to how to put zombies in the world of darkness, but it just seemed like an appropriate time to break out Nemesis here, and I'm going to talk more about Nemesis in a future video, or one that's already happened. If that's the case, that's going to appear on a card somewhere now. But anyway, just keep your eyes peeled for that sort of thing. But coming back to Chicago, I'm really curious to see how they're going to interact with the world around them and the different characters. And of course, there's the final encounter with Nova and the Werewolf, where it is revealed that actually Goldie Grace, or Grace Goldie, I can't remember what fucking names them now, is a kinfolk. So that's going to be a lot of interesting stuff as well. I think they might pick up on that, like an intuitive thing from the Malkavians, that, oh, Nova's terrified of dogs. I think that might give the game away a little bit, but we'll see. We'll see how it plays out, because they're a clever bunch this lot, but they might totally miss it, or they might just presume it's like a Malkavian moment. So anyway, let's see what happens in session 2. So session 2 has now been wrapped up, and apologies if you pick up any of the wind noises. I've got a couple of windows open there, and I'm not really prepared to do anything about it, but hopefully that's not going to be too much of an issue for us here. As I said, session 2 is now wrapped up, and our players have managed to sort out the Corpse Bunny situation, and they've dealt with Acrid Lithium. They dealt with Corpse Bunny first, rather than going after Scorch, who they originally were going to go after, but that's absolutely fine. It's their game. They can do whatever they want. Now, the encounter with Corpse Bunny at the zoo with the chimps went as chaotic as I thought it would do. I did forget on a couple of occasions of where the chimps were and who actually took damage and who didn't, but it all turned out alright in the end, and it did cause some significant damage to the players as well. Like, one of them had their face bitten and eaten off, which was fucking fantastic. It was one of our... It was our Malkavian player, actually, who botched on, like, dodging out the way. They fell down, and then munch, 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 crunch, 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 and they spent a lot of blood points and willpower to get that back over the process of a scene. And then came the end of the fight, which was a lot of fun to run, by the way. I didn't think I would enjoy doing the fights, because I tend to avoid a lot of the combat within the World of Darkness games, just because I find it a bit of a fucking chore. But with First Edition, it was actually far more streamlined and easier to manage, because there's less powers to deal with, because it's less crunchy. It's really fun to do, and I've been doing a variation of this for games for years, and not realising that I was kind of copying First Edition rules. But anyway, getting back to the scene at hand, once they managed to do the fight and they encountered Corpse Bunny, none of them showed any fucking sympathy for the Anarch who had lost their pet chimps. Not ghouls, mind you, they just, like, you know, worked with animalism, and they come into their home and they slaughter them, essentially. One of them had their ribs broken, one of them was stabbed, one of them had its head punched in. Vampires, am I right? And I just thought it was a particularly interesting thing. Like, they didn't care, you know, they were being attacked. I think most would be in a similar situation, to be fair, but I'm so used to, funny enough, to vampire players showing a little bit of sympathy when they do stuff like that, that to see that not happen just caught me by surprise a little bit. But it was cool. It also demonstrated, like, the coldness of the Camarilla against, like, the freer emotions of the Anarchs. And they managed to work out a deal rather, that some of them were going to, like, donate money to, like, the animal rescue that Corpse Bunny was associating with. One paid like $500, and they don't even fucking know about it.
but our Brujar player, who was going to be the singer, didn't have any money, so there's now a minor boon in play. So I would actually like to incorporate that into the Chronicle somehow, but if I can't manage that, then I'm not going to force it, but that's just sort of like there at the back of their head sort of thing, which is making them feel a bit tense because it's going to spin on them in an inopportune moment. Which is cool, because that's what Boons are supposed to do, really, which is absolutely fucking awesome shit.
Hi, it's Future Law here. Yet again, I completely forgot to mention the second part of that session, them going to the Succubus Club in that bit of the recording. So here I am now, just editing that shit back in. So they go to the Succubus Club, and they do what's one of my favourite sort of games within a vampire game, like tricking the club bouncer to enter the club, and they all had really silly, witty ways of doing it. It was a lot of fun. There were a lot of cool roles with that, and by the time it was the last person, who was like being a right old Karen, our Tremere player from the first session that I talked about earlier on, I didn't make them do anyone. It was like, oh fine, just fucking get in, sort of thing. So that caused a lot of laughs. They were able to identify Acrid Lithium quite easily, wannabe trashy bedhead sort of thing, with like nipple tit tape sort of thing. There was all a bit of a cringy la ha ha sort of moment, which was a lot of fun to do, but they all very quickly realised that they were drawing unwanted attention from the hunters. The little pennies began to drop all over the place. Our Brujar had managed to take them into the girls' toilets and find out a bit of information, and because they'd already seen Corpse Bunny, I wanted to give them a bit of information, Nova Moore has been really fucking weird recently, the two Nosferatu who live together in the sewers is a bit weird, etc. and so forth. And just sort of stuff like that. There was a nice bit of role playing, and the group were able to keep the hunters away and not cause a scene, which I find very surprising, given the previous chimp thing and how I expected this group to operate in of itself. That was really cool handling of the situation. They did inform Portia/Helena, the proprietor of the club, the owner, about the Society of Leopold, and because they informed them about Acrid Lithium being there, they are dead. And if I don't mention it at a later point in the Chronicle, they're going to find out in this bit here. So, well done guys, you killed a nice little fledgling. But there was a really funny moment where one of the players, who was like an older character, our other Tremere character, who really cringy, old lady, poking at the pecs of the man sort of, and hey handsome sort of thing. And because the guy rolled a botch to resist the flirtation, I then played into the fact that he was really into this old chick who was able to get a number from the order, so through the right parties, Portia or whatever would be able to hunt down those hunters, and because of that they all gained a boon from Portia as well, which may or may not play up in the session, and they were able to find out these hunters were part of the Society of Leopold, and they were looking for Acrid because they're fucking blatant Masquerade violator who couldn't tell the difference between celerity and celery. It was really good work there, and it's nice that they all worked together like that. Not to say that they haven't been working together up until this point, but there was a very clear element of teamwork here, and it was really cool seeing the group come together like that, and all fulfilling different roles here. I will say though, before I talk about the last bit of this section of the session, is that the Brujar Mary is being the more social of the ones getting a lot of this shit done. So I think towards the end of the Chronicle, where they're going to have that encounter with Nova, they're going to have that audition with Annabelle, which I'll talk about in just a moment when we cut back to my bedroom. And that's going to leave the remaining four, who haven't been the most clued in socially, shall we say, to deal with Nova and the werewolf, which, oh boy, that's going to be a lot of fun.
So, that leaves us now onto the third session, where they've now got 3 members of the game to go after. They've got to go after Phil, they've got to go after Scorch, and then there's Nova to deal with. And providing that they pick up the pace a little bit, they may be able to do all of them in the next session. It might be 1 and a bit sessions. I'm hoping that I don't have to rush things through and do the werewolf encounter at the end, but they have left the 2 most important characters of the scenario. Scorch will know the most about Nova. How he's been very weird and he does all sorts of favours, all sorts of people. He doesn't just work with Kindred. That might just open the door a little bit. And Phil will know that Nova is terrified of dogs, which I think by this point may give it away what they're working with here. And if that's the case, that's going to scare them fucking shitless. And there's also the audition that we have to do with as well. And because I'm a producer by trade who has actually done a little bit of auditioning for people, for musicians and singers, and anybody who knows the musician side of me, I'm a fucking harsh critic. Like, we're going to employ that a little bit as well, and combine that with the blood of like an ancient Toreador vampire who's really angry and upset that they've just lost their main star, somebody that they were obsessing over recently. I think it's going to create a very, very interesting result. So I don't know who they're going to go after next. I think with the information that they have, they're going to go after Scorch. So we'll see what happens next time. So it's another game night, the 2nd of August 2025 in the year of our Lord Talos, and over the last couple of days I've had a bit of a brainstorming moment of how I could change, alter the werewolf encounter towards the end of the Chronicle, which may be tonight's session, it may be the following one, because the players have acted for the most part how I expected them to. Like, doing their utmost best to uphold the Masquerade, not dealing with the Anarch gang members themselves with violence, like they've gotten what they need out of them and they've moved on. But the problem itself really hasn't been solved, because Annabelle wanted them dealt with. And I think I was attempting to infer that she wanted them dead. Now, in the case of Acrodlithium, the group knows that this individual, through a lack of an experience, breaks the Masquerade. They are a Masquerade violation waiting to happen, and in fact they broke the Masquerade numerous times upon their encounter with them. And whilst one player is like very overreactive in a good way about it, you could argue that Annabelle, who, remember, has particularly close ties with Portia in more ways than one, isn't going to be too pleased about all of this happening. And maybe this will come back to bite them on the arse if the players don't properly deal with it. Which leads me to the werewolf encounter. Because as much as I really want to fucking tear them asunder with the werewolf, because I think it'll be fun, for me, and it would totally make sense that this raging guru is just fed up with Kindred, fed up of working with them, etc. and so forth, and if the players do push them, I will absolutely have them do that. But I should probably offer them a way out somehow. The players are going to turn up, and hopefully with a bit of work they'll be able to convince my bone Nora that no, they're not the game members, they're not the ones responsible for this. And then the guru will find out, like, okay, well, are they dead? And they'll probably be honest and say no, or they'll attempt to lie and see right through it, and they'll give them an alternative. That the guru won't tear their fucking throats out if they give them the information, and he and his pack will go and spend the rest of the night hunting them down, which includes Acrodlithium, that includes the gangrel who forced a boon upon one of the coterie, like the Salubri who they started to see the error of their ways. Poor old Phil, who they haven't encountered yet, remember, which I suspect that, given how calm he is going to be, they may actually fucking like and relate to him, which would also cost them a bit of their humanity if they follow up that offer, depending on the rating of their humanity, that is. And it's those sort of moral conundrums that really makes the World of Darkness very interesting for me, specifically Vampire the Masquerade. Like, yeah, it sorts out the problem properly to the standards that I believe the Primogen was inferring, and something that players haven't really done yet. They've tried to keep things on the low. And yeah, they follow through with the discreetly bit, but the vampires are still alive, so, you know, task successfully failed sort of thing. But they may want to follow through with the group's plan and, like, completely clean that shit up. And, you know, what is their hide worth more than that of the Anarchs? You know, who, just through their conversations, most of which have seen the error of their ways in one way or another, if they warranted that second chance, or are they going to be noble and sacrifice themselves sort of thing? I don't think they're going to care that much about them, but it'd be very interesting to see how the conversation follows through and how I get certain characters to roll on their humanity. I have to go and look about what those humanity rolls entail. But so far, I don't think they've done anything that's warranted breaking anything, but I'm going to have to soon, I reckon. Especially as they're going to be seeing
Scorch tonight, and I think if they're going to kill any of the vampires, it's going to be Scorch. But you never know, Phil might be the one who ends up dying today. Yeah, I'm just very intrigued to see what's going to happen here and how they handle this situation. And if they do go toe-to-toe with the Guru, how many of them are going to survive? And of course, they still need to incorporate the audition for Annabelle into this as well. So, yeah, lots of plates to be balancing, folks. But I'm really excited and looking forward to, well, as we run up towards the end of our Chronicle for Vampire the Masquerade First Edition.
And that, they say, is that. The final session of this Vampire the Masquerade First Edition Chronicle has been lovingly wrapped up, as our players have managed to deal with the whole game situation and not be torn apart by werewolves, which I think is a really fucking cool thing. For the players at least, I would have liked to have that fight, but I'll talk about more of that in a moment. The first thing they did is doing something I didn't quite expect, because you may remember that with dealing with Scorch, they were obsessed with a model called Crystal, and I was expecting them to go down the route of, oh, if you take out Crystal for me, then I'll give you what you want to know. But what actually happened, they did the inverse. They used Crystal to subdue their emotions. There was a bit of role-playing, like a pub, bar, strip club thing that I made up called the Raunchy Donkey for a bit of laughs here and there. And there's a nice bit of role-play between our Brujar player and this cat, so Crystal, that I had made up. And I wasn't expecting any of this to happen, so there was a lot of like bullshitting my way through this, which was a lot of fun. And they took Crystal to the destination. There was a bit more role-playing with our elderly Tremere player, the same one who got a bit flirtatious in the previous session, wink wink nudge nudge, who went down to the sewers and just shouted all sorts of crap to get a Nosferatu to pay attention, which I love the chaotic nature of that. And I resurrected my character Pinky, who was a bit of over the way, a bit of a grimy little bastard like that. We got a geezer in it, and I shouldn't have done that because I was doing that for like 10 minutes straight and it's not done my voice any good. Anyway, the things we Games Masters do. Through a bit of negotiation and the other Tremere player, our newbie player, agreeing to teach them a bit of thaumaturgy, they got Scorch, who I then named Cynthia because I was struggling to think of names and it was just like a alliterative thing to Crystal. The two were back and forth where it was kind of revealed that they're very much a Cleopatra sort of thing. A bit more roleplay from our Brujar player, like told them to subdue things and not get so wound up. And they even gave them a bit of compliments about their appearance, which in my mind was the thing, like the tipping point that would stop them being so antagonistic, I think. But yeah, it was a really interesting moment with that, I feel, and the Gangrel player of Bruno was added a bit of comment here and there as well, which was nice. It was something that I didn't really expect, especially with this group who had been really cold and callous, I feel, in the previous session with Corpse Bunny and killing a bunch of chimps. Weird thing, that. But it was nice. I love being kept on my toes like that and surprised, like, and just embracing the chaos. It's very first edition vampire, I feel, as I'm now a virtuoso in the subject. I jest, of course. Anyway, after that, they then dealt with Phil, our Malkavian. I don't know if they picked up on the autism vibes, but it was very clear that it was Malkavian. Yeah, they were very calm and collected with them. And because I wanted to give them a bit more information about the werewolf, because I feel they were beginning to struggle with how little I was giving them, so I had decided that Phil was like just conveniently had the number written down because it's sort of like the clumsy, naive thing that he would do. And I was expecting them to call up Nova to, get to summon him out sort of thing. But no, what actually happened is that newbie Tremere player, one of their allies, it was an ally, was a technomancer who liked to do phones and stuff and wanted to try and hack into their phone and find out their different contacts to find out more about the werewolf contact, which they got bits and pieces from Scorch, but mostly from Phil. And they got the contact number, and then that was relayed back over to Scorch, who then did a bit of asking about, and said, this is the person he looks like, he's at the basketball court at the moment, like scouting the area out, but in actual fact, he was just overseeing a basketball game. Following night happens, reanimating of the corpse of the blood. He immediately goes into him being pissed off because our Gummy Tremere player, the Gummy is an in-joke thing, if you know, you know. The elderly Tremere player, they tried to be a bit flirtatious in a kind of like weird assertive way. I know that's a bit of an oxymoron, but if you knew, you knew. It backfired a little bit, so the conversation happened with him being a bit pissed off. The werewolf, he dreams in red, and he revealed he was a werewolf and he didn't kill the players. The proposition was made There was a role that was going to try and cover up some of the names because the players just offered forward Corpse Bunny because that was the one they liked the least. Brujar got 3 successes. The Werewolf got 5 successes, so they then had to reveal the rest of the names, otherwise they were going to get killed. And again, I love the moral dilemma of here, like trying to work out what do they value more. They were going to give one name. They decided who was worthy to be killed off. They knew that he was going to kill off Nova because newbie Tremere player had used heightened senses to hear the entire phone conversation happening. They got 5 successes, which is incredible. And provided a great moment for them as well, because they were able to help out in a really great way, knowing that Nova the Nosferatu was going to be dealt with, which is really awesome stuff. But they did give up the rest of the names, and they kind of felt bad that everybody else was going to get killed off, but it did remove the problem at the end of the day. Annabelle was pleased, but it's kept kind of hush-hush. About, the Lupines aren't really supposed to be interacting with Kindred this way, but it's Anarch, so I think she would just turn a blind eye to that sort of thing. And that's kind of it, really, just like rushing my way through it. And I did my sort of standard thing with Chronicles, like, okay, what do your characters do next after this? And they've all had some really cool ideas doing this, that, and the other. But I suppose that the only thing I felt a little bit down and disappointed about, first of all, I would have liked that whole session with the Werewolf and the audition thing to be stretched out a bit more. But honestly, the players did so well, like, organising themselves and getting this shit done, and they had some really cool ideas as well, with the Werewolf and the whole phone hacking thing and dealing with Scorch. Like, I'm not going to take that away from them. I'm not going to shorten that session either just to stretch out something just to please me, because they did a really cool fucking thing here, and it works without the whole audition process happening. So maybe I can do that in some other format, but it was a really cool moment here. And kind of a little frustrating on my part is that, like, the same 1 or 2 players are doing most of the social carrying through the session. Like, it got to a point where one of the players is like, can somebody like step forward and like initiate the conversation because I'm doing a lot of the carrying at the moment, which I felt too. And the players did step up a little bit when that happened, which is a little odd because there wasn't too much of that in the previous sessions, but for some reason there wasn't as much energy there. I'm not entirely too sure why. I suppose I could question it if it was like a real issue, but as this was the last session, it's just, I don't know. It's just something that I would have liked to have seen a bit more, but I do try and encourage the players that aren't vocalising as much. Like, if I notice that somebody hasn't piped up as much, ask for opinion here and there, but maybe there was just an off day. Maybe because the other players are just doing like other stuff, there wasn't much input for them there. I don't know. It's not the end of the world, just a very minor gripe in an otherwise really awesome Chronicle. And my first actually fully completed Vampire the Masquerade 1st edition Chronicle. Lovely stuff! If I'd be totally honest with you lot for a second, I really don't know how to wrap this video up properly, because unlike a lot of the recap videos that I've done and the other how to play run TTRPG videos that I do, there hasn't been like a proper goal or objective with this. This hasn't been a case of proving how fairly straightforward something is to do, or using some homebrew or solo mechanics to try and make the process a lot easier, or you don't need to deep throat a load of things into D&D to make a certain game work. There's a fucking system for that. This has just been me taking an edition of Vampire the Masquerade that I have been searching for many years now and just running it for members of my Discord server, and just using the frame of we have 1,000 Discord server members now to celebrate this occasion, and through this video that we're going to be remembering this for quite a long time. No, it hasn't been an actual play and I couldn't quite get the tech to work properly for this, but that doesn't really matter. None of this does really, and it doesn't need to have a goal or an objective all the time. This is purely just me picking up a version of Vampire the Masquerade and just running it for some people, because it's been a few months, almost a year actually, having a look at the calendar near me, since I last ran Vampire the Masquerade, and yet again that was another celebratory sort of thing, and I kind of missed it, and picking up 1st edition and really going back to basics like really made me feel excited and engaged with running Vampire again, and it's made me feel really happy and proud and privileged to give this opportunity to people on the server and have
loads of fun and happy memories with that, and how each of them has taken something away from this. Like, there was one player who doesn't like V5 all that much, that's just been very stuck with V20, which is absolutely fine, and they weren't too sure how first edition was going to compare, but they found that they sunk into it quite easily, because character creation is completely the same for the most part. There's some differences with like how some of the mechanics work, and there's some merits and flaws that are functionally the same, but there's a couple of crucial differences. But they were able to have a really fun time with it and like get into it pretty easy because of that other experience that they had. We have somebody that really enjoys 5th edition stuff, which is again totally fine, and they just had a blast having fun with the 1st edition of Vampire, and just that wasn't too difficult for them to get into as well. And we had a player who hadn't played any Vampire before, that this was their very first game of Vampire the Masquerade, using the 1st edition of Vampire the Masquerade as well, and it just feels really wonderful that I was able to provide those different experiences to different people, and giving them these really happy, fun memories, and particularly with that player who hadn't played before, hopefully this is the first of many games that they have. And yeah, whilst there were certain like hiccups along the way, primarily the weird little lack of enthusiasm I felt in the last session, and some very interesting scheduling hiccups at the beginning, where there was a particular player who made weird prioritizations, I guess, when they were signing up, but I've got a separate video coming up about that later this year. It went really well, and as I keep saying, people had a lot of fun, and it didn't require me to have like mountains upon mountains of books. It was just a small pile of this book, the Succubus Club, Chicago by Night 1st edition, for literally a page of stats, and reminding myself a little bit about the University of Chicago, and the player's guide, which I needed for chimp stats and grenades, which is a very bizarre combination, but it is what it is. And quite frankly, I don't even think I needed all that at the end of the day, because I didn't need stats for Annabelle at the end of the day. I remembered most of the Succubus Club details already, so all I needed was this one book, just to run the game and just to remind myself of some certain mechanics. Like, it's not difficult, it's not too out there. Like, unlike the other 1st edition splats within the World of Darkness, this is pretty much identical to what you would find in later editions. It's not too broken, a bit rough around the edges for sure, because like some of the obfuscate powers the Nosferatu can't use because it's tied to appearance, and the Nosferatu do not have appearance. Some of the more flattering uses of presence require the use of intimidation, which I can understand the logic behind that, but at the same time it's a weird choice, I suppose. But you know, as I said, it's a bit rough around the edges. It was the very first edition of this classic game within the World of Darkness, so I can't be too annoyed about it, really. I mean, if it carried on being this bad, then we've got some real problems here, but at just this point, I'm just waffling. I'm just really happy that what set out just to be a fun game has ended up being, well, a really fun game that hopefully players will take away and remember forevermore. And despite the intention and the expectations at the beginning of this video and the beginning of the planning of this game, it didn't end up being a grueling slogfest. The combat was fun, it wasn't too much, and everyone had a lot of fun. And I'm just really, really glad that everyone had lots of fun, and the audience that we had, because I did do this streamed live on the Discord server as like a fun little private thing, that the audience, as minute as it was, particularly towards the end, that was a lot of fun too, and people had fun with that, and there was lots of engagement, and I also had fun like setting things up a little than half an hour earlier, like just chatting with folks. So to wrap this video up, I'm going to leave the books that I've used for this video and the games I've been running in the description below, and as well as some other World of Darkness goodies for you to go and purchase as well, some of which are my homebrew and some of which are other neat little books that I think you should be definitely checking out. Have you played Vampire the Masquerade 1st edition recently? If not, I think you should, because it's just a really great way of going back to basics where you want to play some Vampire, but you don't want to be carrying around so many books around with you. And even with the V20 book or the V5 book, they're both pretty chunky books, but with 1st edition here, it's not that much. Okay, granted, if you don't have the physical version, you're just going to have to rely on the PDF, but even then, it's not a huge file size. And unlike a lot of the things on Drive-Thru RPG that are older material stuff, the 1st edition PDF is one of the nicest PDFs within the White Wolf line, so there's not really much excuse not to give it a go, really, because it's often as cheap as chips. So try 1st edition and let me know how you get on with it in the comments below. What's your favourite version of Vampire the Masquerade? 1st, 2nd, 3rd, or revised, 20th anniversary edition, or V5, because they're all great, but they've all got things wrong against them, and I just love to hear what you think about all of them. Good, bad, and different, and all the fun little games that you've been running, because it's always a real delight to me hearing about the shit that you get up to. But specifically with this video, I would love to hear what you think about Vampire the Masquerade 1st edition. And don't forget to check out those various books that I've mentioned, and if you purchase them with those specific links, I get some of the money back because I'm an affiliate from Drive4RPG, and those sorts of purchases can help expand the channel to do cool shit like this, because this was use real money that you were all able to help me out with. So thank you ever so much. So if you want me to do more things like this and to run more games for you, because I've got another 1st edition Chronicle for you lot to go and play at some point as well, so keep your eyes peeled for that. But I'm going to put 1st edition on the shelf for the time being as I focus on The Walking Dead. So if you want me to run that for you, let me know in the comments below and give me some little thoughts and opinions about that TTRPG system as well. But going back to buying things and giving me money, if you can't do that, that's absolutely fine. Or what if you've got those books already? That's also fine, because what you can do instead is copy and paste that affiliate code and put it in the URL of any Drive4RPG purchase, and that helps to support the channel financially as well, which means that you get books, I get books, and you get content for free and games for you. So really, it's a win-win chicken dinner situation for you, my friends. Now, as I said a moment ago, if you can't do any of that, that's absolutely fine, because I know times are hard on all of us, and it's not necessary to support the channel by doing that, but it would be wonderful if you could do that, so I can do these things easier for you, and you're not having to wait as long for me to run the next game for you, or do the next book review, or whatever weird fucking project I'm coming up with next. But what you should definitely do regardless is give this video a little thumbs up if you like this sort of content, subscribe to the Lord by Nat channel, and share this video with any and everyone who loves what I do, and I'll see you on the next upload, wherever that may well be for you. And until next time, farewell.